Alright guys, let's cut this out. So the first thing you're going to need is to print out your pattern. The little square that comes with all the extra pieces, I've actually sticky taped this before I laminated it, so that now I won't lose those and I can always find it. And another little trick, if you get confused about this panel, because apparently a few people have accidentally chopped it upside down, just write the word top along here and then laminate it. So I am using, this actually comes in a roll from Spotlight, so it's like this awesome holographic mermaid kind of vinyl. So you don't need a lot, so this is super handy. And then I'm just using a fun fish fabric for the lining and the mermaid scales for the outside. Now, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to cut my lining. So I store all my little pieces on cardboard boxes I chop up. This piece is actually a 6.5 by 4. It's like a size of a photo. So I'm going to open it out. I'm just going to grab my pen. I'm not using any kind of fancy marker with this. And if you're new to sewing, you don't want to use where the perforated holes are on the side. So you just want to come this side of it. It's usually about 3/4 of an inch from the edge that you want to come in. But just past those dots is good. So there's one. And then I'm just going to put this one up next to that one. Trace the second one. Where are my scissors? Under here. Okay, so then we just chop that out. So I'm going to chop all the way across and then just trim off that end, and that will go in the bin. Okay, so there's my 2 lining pieces. Then I'm going to pack this back up. So I fold mine in half, and in half again to stick on my little boards, and then these all slot into a drawer really nicely. Okay, let's go with our accent panel. So I want my mermaid scales this way, so this will be the top, but I always trace from the back. So I'm going to put this one up here as close to that as I can so that I'm not wasting anything. And then just trace around that. And then I'm going to flip it because we need to do one mirrored. And then I'm going to put that as close to the other piece as possible and trace that one. So you want to try and stick as close to that line as you can. So there's one piece cut out. And then a second piece. Now out of vinyl, I am also going to do the strap connector. So depending on what hardware you're going to use for your strap connector will depend on what size. But basically you want to double whatever thickness you're doing. So I'm doing a 1-inch strap connector. So I'm going to cut out a 2-inch thick strap connector piece. And I've just done 2 by 3 because I can always chop it down if I need it less. So there's my strap connector. Now for my strap, I'm going to do, or my handle, I'm going to do my fancy half and half. So I'm going to literally just use my 14-inch ruler and I'm going to do the whole thing. So 14 by 2 inches, and that will be my wristlet strap. Or half of it anyway. We've still got to cut out the other half. Now if you're a little bit scared of vinyl or you've never used it before, you don't have to do your strap this way. You can do it however you like. I will actually do a video on all different types of strap connectors and straps for you so that you can see that. Alright, so then we're going to take our main panel. So I'm using this really adorable rainbow mermaid scale. And so then I'm just going to place this down. So I'm going to do one back piece. Now, if you wanted to, you could also do your back piece in vinyl, but I do not. My vinyl isn't wide enough to do it in the scales in the direction that I want. If I was using vinyl by the meter, I would potentially do that. And then we just need one top piece, front piece. So I'm going to line that up as well, making sure I've got my top in the way that I want it, because this fabric is directional. If your fabric's not directional, it doesn't matter, and just get it all as close as you can for minimal wastage. Chop that out. Now you also need to decide what you want your zipper ends to be made out of. So I haven't actually decided yet, which is why I haven't cut them. I'm just going to chop all the way across there. This piece wouldn't be useful attached to my giant piece of fabric. It would just be in the way. So it's easy to just chop it off. If you were doing your strap connector out of fabric, you could probably get it out of that piece there. So again, we're not wasting it. I'm trying to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm basically just cutting around my line. And then same with this. So I'm going to chop it off the big piece first, because then it's easier to maneuver, even though it's just a rectangle. I always like to have my scissors resting on the table for this. I find it sturdier and easier. Okay, so that's our back, our front, our accent panel, strap connector, that. So what else we need is the other half of my wristlet strap. So I will be using this fabric. So I want to take my ruler again, because it is going to be this size. And then I'm going to just do, so before we did 2 inches, so this time I'm going to do 1.5 inches. So I'm going to give less. Okay, so 1.5. And that will be the top of our strap connector there. Not strap connector, sorry, wristlet strap. The pattern says 13 3/8, but the extra little bit that I'm doing I don't think will matter. And it's easier for me to just rule around my ruler. But feel free to follow the pattern and do the 13 3/8. Alright, so that is that part. I think the end of my zip is going to have a vinyl. I have just decided. So it wants our zipper tabs to be 1.25 by 2 3/8. So 2 3/8 is to there. Draw a line, and then 1.25 wide. 1.25 wide. There we go. And by cutting all the way across here, I have then squared up the end of this for the next thing. So that one's not one. Alright, so that is now all of my pieces. So now we're going to go over to the iron, and I'll show you how I'm going to iron it. Alright, so I'm only going to be interfacing my inside and outside pieces, and I will be using different interfacing for each. So this is a medium non-woven fusible. So when you iron it on, it actually goes a little bit stiffer than the woven fusible. So woven fusible is beautiful and soft. This one is definitely a bit thicker and stiffer. So then I've got glue side up, and then I'm going to put the fabric wrong side down. And then this is a sheet of baking paper to make sure that none of the glue sticks to my iron. So then I'm just going to stick a very hot iron on and hold it there for between 4 to 8 seconds, depending on how hot your iron goes and how thick your fabric is. You can do it for more than 8 seconds. It's not going to wreck it because the paper's there. But you just want to make sure that it's got a nice firm grip. So see, I haven't quite done enough in that corner. I actually did that deliberately so I could show you. So you just scratch at the sides. If they lift up, you just re-iron it a little bit. You are obviously, of course, welcome to trace and cut out your interfacing. But if you're using non-woven, you'll find it might shrink a little bit. In which case you won't have interfacing all the way to the edges. So I find that this way makes sure that that doesn't happen. So just slow and steady. There's no trick to it. You just always want to make sure that you've got this not where your iron will potentially get the glue on it, because it's not fun to get off. Okay, so now that they're stuck on, I'm just going to pop them aside. And then you can cut them out at the end. So I won't show you how I cut out again. We've just done that. So then I'm going to grab my roll of Formfuse 1600. So I just stick the roll on the floor and then pull it up. So I don't have to chop bits off it. I find that I get a lot more out of it by doing it this way. So then I'm going to line that up in the corners. And I'm going to iron that one down first. If yours is too wrinkly, so this is a little bit wrinkly, you can actually iron it first to make sure that there are no wrinkles. So when you sit it on the interfacing, it'll sit nicely. So now that that's ironed, I can sit that there and set this one up against it like that. So there's minimal wastage now. Get my piece of baking paper and just do the ironing again. Eventually this will go very, very brown because it does do a lot of ironing. So I have to change out my baking paper sheet probably once a month-ish, depending on how much waterproof lining I've done in things. But I bought a 25-meter roll and it lasts me the better part of a year, I think. And I do a lot of sewing, like every day, so... And you always just need to remember which side you've got up. I used to write top, so that if you could read the word top, it's up the right way. Or if you've got like a hole punch, just hole punch the corner with like a letter or something that is directional so that you can tell. Alright, so that should be nice and ironed. You could hear that had to actually peel off. But because it's baking paper, there is no glue stuck to there. As it gets older, it gets glue stuck, and that's when you really need to make sure it's up the right way. So I'm just going to chop those out, and then we are ready to do the sewing.